Y'all know what's going on. It's time for another episode of Doing Time with Joe. I'm your host, Joe Bacon. Welcome to the show, y'all. Fever makes a man dream stupid. In here, a small sickness crawls across the mattress like a stray cat and decides your chest is a porch it owns. I woke to that kind of weight. Sweat on my neck, grit on my tongue, joints complaining like old hinges, and the speaker on the wall coughed out ball field like it was calling children to recess. The dorm lifted as one hungry animal, spades half played, jokes midair, flip-flops already turned toward the yard. Men want routine more than they want answers. The whistle is a habit you can pretend is freedom. Me, I chose a different church that morning, soap, steam, and a stall at the end with a rust halo like an old saint who skipped court. I wrapped a towel over my shoulder and eased down the corridor, counting my breaths so my pride didn't hear me limping. The shower room was a hollow cathedral. Everybody gone to the yard, echo tacked up like a memorial wreath. I twisted the valve. The pipe hissed cold, then learned my name, and the water turned kind enough to be forgiven. Steam rose in a hurry, licking the paint back from the ceiling, fogging the glass like it had secrets to keep. First breath in, the heat shoved the fever an inch to the left. I let the water beat a drum line across my shoulders and pretended aches were coins I could pay to walk out clean. That's when the voices slid through the tile, low, close, deliberate, not loud enough to echo, the way men talk when they want the room to mind its business but also understand who's in charge. I didn't freeze, I didn't lean to listen. You don't become the headline by stopping to eavesdrop. You survive by washing like you got somewhere to be. One voice carried that vice lord drawl, vowels riding low, ends clipped like receipts. The other voice was thin around the edges, a boy from the sound of it, not by age maybe, but by the way certainty still surprised him. No names and no dates, just the cadence of education, orders folded into advice, consequences tucked into questions. I kept my face to the wall, counted the freckles of rust like stars on a county map, and let the water be my alibi. I couldn't catch the words clean, but I didn't need translation. Breaths tell on people, pauses tell more. They were building a lane for the kid, something that would start quiet and end with everybody pretending they didn't know. When the voices went thin and then vanished, I cut the water, shook like a tired dog and slid out, flip-flop slapping the tile the way a clock talks to a room. The dorm, emptied by yard call, felt like a church after the funeral, wood still warm, air still heavy. I climbed into my rack, pulled the blanket over a fever doing the two-step, and let the building hum sing me crooked. An hour later, the dorm refilled. Men walking in loud with victories they'd invented and losses they'd bargained with later. Dominoes clicked like teeth. Phones hummed where phones shouldn't exist. Coughs tuned up like a brass section. I tried sleep again. Sleep tried me back and won on points. Morning opened like a creaky door. I was hunched, working a knot out of my shoelace when he appeared, small frame at my threshold, eyes doing the nervous math that measures the distance between shame and need. He carried an envelope, plain, fat, quiet, like all decisions that already decided themselves. From him, the boy said, no name, no wink, no bravery. He set it on my footlocker and walked away with his shoulders gathered like a coat 2 sizes too big. Paper can talk before it's opened. Weight changes the air, even seal. Dope has a smell, sweet green memory, a plant that forgot what altar it belonged on. I let that envelope sit while the room watched me not touch it. No snicker from the till. No officer sliding out of a broom closet with a citation, and just the same terrible morning, busy being normal. When I finally opened it, I used 2 fingers like the past had explosives inside. Folded plastic, tidy as a clerk. No note, no smile, no instructions, just inventory. I slid it under the loose tile that nosed my hand and sat with my palms on my knees while my mind changed uniforms 3 times. skeptic, accountant, chaplain. There are 3 rules of gifts in prison. 1, there ain't gifts. 2, there's debts dressed nice. 3, interest is how you find out which kind you got. I told myself the simple story. You didn't ask, you didn't bargain, you didn't speak. Then a louder truth put its foot in the doorway. You were present. And presence is a signature to men who need your name to hold up a table with a short leg. So I moved like nothing new had happened. Laundry shift, detergent dust making fake snow in the vents count. Bodies become furniture at the crack of a voice. Spades, where I folded early because coughing ain't a wild card, and my partner didn't need a liability. The gossip machine coughed what it coughs. Who got moved, who got stuck, who left visitation smiling with eyes that weren't convinced. My name didn't bounce. That can be mercy. That can also be the drummer warming up. Next morning, same boy, same envelope. He set it down and left without asking for a receipt. I nodded the kind of nod men give weather. Then I did what you do when a river pretends it's just a puddle. You step around it and tell yourself your socks are still dry. Weeks stack fast when you keep them level. Week 1, I sold myself math. Flip a little, stash a little, keep your mouth out of it. Be the bank, not the billboard. Week 2, I let habit sweep the floor and called it wisdom. Week 3, whispers grew legs. Not the sharp kind, ambient noise, the room rearranging seats without anybody standing. I noticed vice lords drifting near my lane but not into it. A lieutenant who didn't belong to my past strolling my row when the boy did his drop, lips counting something. The second shift CEO started writing kinder lines on my laundry sheet. Kindness in here ain't random. It's a chalk outline where a favor expects to lay down. I trim my vocabulary. No thanks and no why, not even a stop that would embarrass both of us. In the mirror, I rehearsed my alibi, not participating, just surviving. The mirror nodded like it had its own case penny. Every week, the envelope, it turned into a metronome I hadn't set. I watched the boy's hands, steady, trained, almost bored. He never looked me in the face. He studied borders, the seam between door and frame, floor and bunk, the places men hide answers when faces tell the truth. I wanted to ask his name. Didn't. Name's Alicia's, and I was already wearing one I didn't remember ordering. Paranoia didn't kick the door. It seeped under it like damp. First as insomnia, the eyes heavy, the hallway lights in the brain refusing to dim. Then as math, extra counts, extra glances at cameras, extra distance from men who use brother like a tire iron. I moved the tile hide twice, then retired it for an old panel behind the third washer that sings a different key if you tap the corner. Paranoia becomes a hobby in here. Mine took a second job. That's around when Raven Mitchell started pausing at my doorway doing tea clean. She's got that janitor wisdom, knows where the building keeps its nerves, knows which squeak is innocent and which squeak is hiding a letter. You look like a man with 2 shadows, she said, leaning on a mop like it was a staff. Flu, I told her. She smirked soft. Flu don't make a man listen before he speaks. Then she walked on, leaving a bright stripe on the floor, like a brief moment of heaven nobody asked for. The quality of the thing changed before the quantity did. Envelopes kept time, but the air around them got heavier, like someone turned up the humidity on my moral weather. A stranger's laugh kept drifting from the stairwell. A thin little blade that didn't cut deep, just let you know it had been sharpened. I recognized the diet of that laugh. It ate fear. So I asked out loud to nobody, what's the price? Because the price is always there. Whether you pay early in blood or late in favors with interest. Maybe they wanted storage. Maybe they wanted maps, corridors, camera blinks, count rhythms. Maybe they wanted the appearance, my name floating on their river. So when it flooded, folks remembered who lived downstream. I tried a gentle refusal. Week 9, when the boy appeared, I shook my head once. He set the envelope down anyway and left. Turns out my head movements don't change the river's tide chart. That night a kite slid under my door. Tight handwriting, no name, no flourish. Don't talk, we like you quiet. I fed it to the steel toilet in quarters like sacrament I couldn't afford. Confession. Next morning I checked the floor before I brushed my teeth. Envelope was there, faithful as a bad habit. I slid it into the panel without counting. Counting is how you name what owns you, I told myself later. Later is a liar with good posture. By then, Dre Williams took up a post by the old ice machine that hasn't spat a cube since the governor had sideburns. You look like a dude who owes gravity money, he said. The flu, I tried again. He laughed without smiling. Flu don't make envelopes walk, he said, palms up, not a threat so much as a weather report. We traded the kind of nod that says, I didn't see nothing, and I know that you didn't. Week 10 changed shape. The boy set down one envelope, then pulled a second from his sleeve like a clumsy magician and placed it beside the first. From him, too, he said, no names because names hire lawyers. I waited for the after-child hum. Officers bored, tear yawning, then opened both and found what anybody would expect, more than I wanted, even if I hadn't wanted any. I didn't count. I put the math away and sharpened the philosophy. That night, I dreamed the shower was all mirrors and every reflection was me pretending not to know me. Woke sweating in a way the air couldn't fix. Sat up and listened to the building breathe and asked the question again but softer, like a man who finally respects the silence. What's the price? By month 3, resignation unpacked boxes and arranged the furniture tasteful. I shrank life to things I could count without lying. Laundry totals, a set number of steps after count, a spade's hand I never let get pretty. The vice lord stayed polite, investors protecting an asset. The boy kept time like a metronome. COS started remembering my last name without checking a list. Attention is its own kind of paperwork. Then the song cut off mid-chorus. He got shipped. Vice lord, the outline behind the edges of all this moved like weather to another zip code. News arrived as a shrug passed down the tier. Boss gone, board reset. Next morning, the floor outside my door was just floor. No board, no envelope, just an absence shaped like a habit. Relief and paranoia. Shook hands in my chest. That's a nasty duet. And here, relief is a hallway that always ends at a locked door. Yard talk bloomed. Who took whose slot? Who owed gratitude for the transfer? Who pretended the chessboard moved itself overnight? I listened without registering and took a shift pushing a load I didn't need just to hear a machine do a job it understands. Water thumping inside steel kept better time than my conscience. If this were a brochure, it would end here. Empty floor, lesson learned, chaplain able to nod in public. But truth has bad manners. It puts its feet on your table and asks for seconds. Packages leave traces, arrangements leave ghosts, silence leaves witnesses. And so I waited for the echo, because echoes always arrive late but dressed. It came wearing a question and a neat smile. A vice lord I hadn't met placed himself in my path by the dead fountain. Are you straight? He asked, voice ironed flat. I'm even, I said. He nodded like a man confirming the weather he ordered. I like that rhythm, he said, not saying envelope, boy, or shower, then drifted away like a man late to collect interest. That night, I lifted the panel and looked at what I'd been pretending wasn't there. It didn't count. Counting is naming, and naming is owning. Owning is how the ledger writes your eulogy. I closed the panel like a confession and let a decision circle the bunk like a stray. Come close, don't come closer, pick a human. Here's the fork, and most men walk into it grinning. When a river you don't manage starts sending you water, you either build a boat or drown polite. I ain't built for politeness. Drowning is loud and unflattering. So I chose the dangerous version of discipline, set the price myself. Give back what ain't mine without speeches, no announcements, just a correction slip between gears. I mapped it in my head until the root sat down and behaved. Laundry card number 3, wheel it squeals in E flat so I can follow the sound while my eyes look bored. Kitchen corridor, 2 turns past where newcomers get lost and argue with their feet. A porter, older than my regrets, wrists like question marks, mouth like a locked drawer, who respects gratuity but not drama. 2 motions, my hand to cart, cart to shadow, shadow to someone who likes daylight and won't testify. All of it stitched to count, because count is the only sermon everyone knows by heart. Before dawn, I washed at the little steel sink, water biting like a smart remark, and studied the stranger in the shine. He didn't blink, neither did I. Words are receipts. I keep fewer of them now. I stepped into the corridor, fever demoted to rumor, and let my ears open the day before my hands did. Somewhere behind a wall, water ran soft, steady, the sound that started all of this, stubbornly useful. I didn't look back. Looking back invites narrators. I walked slow and sure toward a morning that would decide whether my quiet was rented or bought, one risky minute at a time. Laundry first. Clipboard turned to page 2 to distract the kind of officer who trusts paper more than eyes. Carts lined like patient mules. I tested the wheels. One squeak humming that E-flat note like a bad choir. Perfect. A drop of oil on the wrong wheel creates the right noise. Plans are part truth, part theater. You pray your audience likes your genre. Count, crack the air. Men froze into furniture. I tallied with them, then unfroze at boredom speed. Mover's rhythm, custodian posture, E-flat squeal, just enough to tell me where I was without announcing it to men who collect hobbies like evidence. Kitchen corridor shifted the climate. Grease ghosts, onion confessions, machines honoring the grind. I parked the cart beside the shadow that isn't a shadow so much as a mistake the architect kept. The porter appeared without arriving, wrists light, eyes tired. 2 motions, no words, and mercy with calluses, and then the cart was empty of what didn't belong to me, and the shadow was full of someone else's happiness, and the corridor swallowed the moment like a building that knows how to keep a secret. Back in the unit, Dre looked up from cards and gave me that small grin, the one that says weather's clearing without promising sunshine. I nodded like a man who respects meteorology and sat on my rack counting not blessings, not failures, just breaths. The boy didn't show the next day, didn't show the day after either. I stood in my doorway in the early light and let the nothing prove itself. Floor looking like floor is a miracle in slow motion. I'm not dramatic, and I didn't raise my hands, just let my shoulders ease down like a verdict got amended. At chow, Tyrone Briggs slid across from me, tray a mess of orange and apology. You look lighter, OG, he said. Found a cheaper shadow, I told him. He scraped his spork in slow circles. Folks say the song changed. Songs change, I said, kitchen stays. He laughed without sound, stood up like he'd remembered a chore, and left the table to go argue with his luck. Nights came easier. I folded towels with a care therapy can invoice, lined them up on the shelf like small decisions that had finally learned to stand straight. Raven's mop left his little lanes of borrowed heaven, and for a blink, the tear believed in clean. The vent hummed and the fluorescent buzzed anxious, snoring built a ragged choir, and a stray prayer floated past without asking to be graded. I ain't naive enough to pretend the river won't knock again. There will be other songs, other couriers, other investments trying to rent my name by the day. Maybe they arrive with nicer envelopes. Maybe they arrive with worse smiles. But this morning, this ordinary, merciless morning, the strip of floor outside my door is exactly what the state paid for. And that is not nothing. Later, I walk past the old shower, rust halo, still testifying, drain still greedy, steam ghost folded into the corners like it forgot its hat. For a second, the room echoed a memory that didn't belong to anyone brave. Then a cart squeaked, a CO cleared his throat, and the building reminded me that the past doesn't carry keys unless you loan them out. I kept it pushing. Eyes where smart men keep them when nothing needs discovering. Back on my rack, I thought about the boy without a name, how he learned to stare at borders instead of faces, how his hands never shook, how he trusted the rhythm to defend him. I hope he's somewhere his shadow costs less. I hope he finds out what his own voice sounds like when it ain't borrowing someone else's certainty. Hope is cheap in here, but it's the only currency that doesn't incriminate you. If you ask me what changed, I won't brag. I didn't grow wings. I didn't find religion that pays cash on delivery. All I did was decide I'd rather be boring than brave in the wrong direction. Boring saves lives nobody can count because they didn't end. Boring keeps the kites from sliding under doors, the laughter from sharpening itself, the floor from learning your name. There's a lesson in there, but I won't staple a bow on it. This place taught me that clean morals get dirty quick, and dirty morals wash up prettier than they should. You pick the mess you can live with. Mine today is a quiet corridor, a corrected route, and a sink where the water bites but tells the truth. When lights dropped to their tired blue and the unit settled into its chorus, I lay back, hands on my chest, lighter than last week, heavier than last year, and listened to the hum like it was a lullaby. The building forgot how to sing, but still remembered the melody. Sleep came without bargaining. Set me down like a tired package at the right door. No envelope, no note, nothing inside but rest. This has been another episode of Doing Time with Joe. I'm your host, Joe Baker, and I say peace, y'all.